Thanks so much for joining us. I'm Marcella Robertson. We begin with breaking news on the shooting death of 11-year-old Davon McNeal. He was a young boy hit and killed by a stray bullet on July 4th, 2020. Within the past hour, 3 of the 4 men who pleaded guilty in his killing were sentenced. Darrell Bond, Carlo General, Marcel Gordon, and Christian Wingfield all pleaded guilty to voluntary manslaughter while armed, but each faced different sentences. General was sentenced to 16 years in prison, Gordon 10 years, and Wingfield 9.5 years. Bond's sentencing was rescheduled to August. He faces 7.5 to 9 years. Davon McNeal's mom spoke shortly after those sentencings.
Today was hard for me, just to see the guys that took my child away from me. In honor of my son, Davon McNeal, I stand before you with a heavy heart and unanswered question. No mother should endure this pain. No child deserves to be robbed on their childhood hopes, dreams, or life.
And you saw D.C. Mayor Muriel Bowser there with McNeal's mom. They were there for the launch of the 202 for Peace campaign, a summer-long citywide gun violence awareness campaign. Meantime, President Biden is challenging Congress to strengthen gun laws following recent mass shootings in New York, Texas, and Oklahoma. The president made the plea on the same day the House Judiciary Committee approved a gun legislation package, setting up a vote on the House floor as early as next week. Natalie Brand reports from Capitol Hill.
Students are once again walking out of class to demand gun safety in an effort to pressure lawmakers to act.
This isn't about taking away anyone's rights. It's about protecting children.
Using candles as a backdrop, President Biden urged Congress to pass new gun control legislation in the wake of mass shootings, including those in Buffalo, Uvalde, and Tulsa.
For God's sake, how much more carnage are we willing to accept? How many more innocent American lives must be taken before we say enough, enough?
The president has called for a ban on high-capacity magazines, universal background checks, new safe storage laws, and red flag laws, and a return to the assault weapons ban of 1994 that he helped pass as a senator.
If we can't ban assault weapons, then we should raise the age to purchase them from 18 to 21.
House lawmakers could vote as early as next week on a major package of gun safety proposals, including a ban on high-capacity magazines.
We are paying for this deadly culture with the lives of the American people.
Democrats and Republicans on the Judiciary Committee debated for nearly 10 hours Thursday. The committee vote fell along party lines.
This is on our watch. Where is the outrage?
This bill would not stop the terrible events. It wouldn't harden schools, but it will sure take away the rights of the American people who follow the law.
In the Senate, a small bipartisan group says it's making progress on proposals to address red flag laws, school safety, and mental health. Those more narrow measures would need 60 votes to advance in the evenly divided Senate. Natalie Brand, CBS News, Capitol Hill.
Students at Richard Montgomery High School in Rockville walked out of class in response to recent gun violence. Sky 9 was over the school as students gathered there to show their support for gun control measures. Students heard from several speakers, and the names of the victims of the mass shooting at Robb Elementary in Uvalde, Texas, were read aloud. Well, this morning, Maryland's new ghost gun law goes into effect, but it's causing some confusion. The law both bans the sale of ghost guns in the state, but it also requires existing ghost guns to be registered.
The banning part of the law is pretty straightforward, but it's the state's process for registering the already built ghost guns that has folks confused, and critics say it's not going to stop gun crimes. June 1st, Maryland joined 10 other states and the district in attempting to regulate so-called ghost guns. These are homemade guns built from kits or sometimes 3D printers. They're seen as easier for criminals to get a hold of because they don't require background checks and don't need to be registered. Maryland's law bans the sale of ghost guns. It also requires people who already own homemade firearms to register them.
Which is about as clear as mud on a rainy day.
The Hagerstown gunsmith we talked to said the new law could conflict with a new federal ghost guns rule. And here's how. The Maryland law requires a federally licensed firearms dealer to engrave each gun with a state personal identification number. But in August, a new federal rule on ghost guns will require each gun to get a federal serial number engraved. Maryland State Police point out the state's ID number is not a federal serial number.
So there was a lot of confusion. None of this will have the desired effect of reducing crime.
Second Amendment supporters told us that the confusion will make it harder for law-abiding gun owners to comply. Even gun control supporters point out this type of confusion will create issues state to state, and that's why they advocate for Congress to step in. We're going to continue to follow this as the rollout of the new law continues. I'm Matt Gregory, WUSA 9.
So let's verify, does federal law really protect gun manufacturers from being sued? Our sources here are a trio of law professors. We also looked to the law in question, the 2005 Protection of Lawful Commerce in Arms Act, called PLACA for short. And we read through a Congressional Research Service paper. Let's start with PLACA. It was created in part to prevent civil lawsuits against, quote, manufacturers, distributors, dealers, and importers of firearms or ammunition products for the harm solely caused by the criminal or unlawful misuse of firearms products or ammunition products.
So if you're shot by a person who criminally misuses a weapon, this law would block you from suing a firearms manufacturer.
But there are exceptions.
If you buy a firearm that is defective, if you knowingly transfer a firearm knowing that that firearm will be used to commit a crime of violence,
you can sue when there's an allegation that the manufacturer or dealer violated an underlying statute, either a federal or a state statute, that is, quote, applicable to the sale or marketing of firearms.
And we just saw this play out in 2015. The families of 9 Sandy Hook victims sued gunmaker Remington for the way they marketed the weapon used in that mass shooting.
The allegation by the families was that Bushmaster was marketing this gun to be used for offensive, violent conduct.
In February, Remington settled for $73 million.
But I don't think it really resolved the ultimate legal question as to just how big an exception is this to the federal immunity shield.
So we can verify that, yes, a 2005 law does protect gun makers from being civilly sued simply because their guns are used in a crime. However, it's not complete immunity, and some states have laws giving even more immunity to manufacturers than PLACA. With your Verify, I'm Adam Longo.